Last time I said we'd be taking a look at another lady from Legacy, and I am not a fibber, at least in this particular context. And so yes, today we're taking a look at Legacy Windblade, and I'm going to say what I think virtually everyone else has said about this figure in the past. I'm gesturing off camera like you can see my hands, and that is that I was genuinely really surprised by this figure. She is relatively simplistic in terms of engineering, and I'm not I'm not as enamored with Windblade, say, as I am with like Shadow Striker. I feel like was a more interesting character in Cyberverse, partially because Windblade just got to be a freaking MacGuffin for like an entire season. She was the exposition dump in the first season, then she became a MacGuffin. It was so annoying. Point is, Windblade is cool. It's just she's not necessarily my biggest focus when it comes to Cyberverse characters, but this figure is really cool. Yes, she's simple, but she's really fun. She is fun to mess with. Her posability and whatnot are just really, really fun, and I like that quite a bit. So yeah, it's just basically the same thing you've heard from everyone else. And this figure is really cool. The vehicle mode, I feel like, could use a little bit of extra color up here in the cockpit section. It's kind of a bluish tint to this plastic, very slightly, though that might just be it reflecting the blue from the backdrop here. But it's clear plastic showing red plastic, and it's surrounded by a sea of red plastic. I feel like if the interior, which there is actually a molded interior there, if the interior was a different color than red, that would have been cool. If the cockpit was not clear plastic and was instead a different color, like maybe this kind of blue that made it pop more in the front, that would have been nice. But, oh well, this is what we got. That being said, ignoring this particular chunk of red up here, the rest of the color separation on the vehicle is actually pretty nice, because you've got a little bit of black in the tip of the nose. You've got a much better mixture of black and red up here with the line work and the VTOLs with a little bit of silver in addition to that. You've got some of that silver here and that really, really nice blue right in that section there. And then, of course, some black in the back. So the color breakup, ignoring this part, is actually quite nice. And then on the underside, it's oh, look, it's a Windblade figure. So it's just a robot that's tucked up behind, underneath the jet, which is fine. You can store the sword, as you can clearly see, as little exhaust thing, jet exhaust, whatever. Though it is kind of silly because you've got a single purple flame that is between two boosters. That's a little bit silly. It just, I don't know, it's weird to me. But I'm going to take the sword out of there, so you want to just unpeg what is obviously the legs. And this just pegs in right in there. You can kind of see there's a little peg there and a little hole for it on the side. And that just unpegs. From there, it gets sandwiched with those two pegs. And that is all you got to do to store the sword. I kind of think it'd be cool if it had a way to store outside of that. But these pegs are too small to work with any of the available peg holes along the bottom there, and there's really nothing on the top. It is weird. I'm just noticing that the bottom of the handle of the sword has this kind of rectangular peg to it, and I don't know why that is, but there's no discernible place I could see to peg that in. And like I said, these little side pegs are too small, so you can't plug it in there. And because of this little handle thing, it's not going to work in any of these other available peg holes. So you pretty much have to store it back there, which is kind of irritating. Yeah. But the boosters are blast effect compatible, like the actual boosters, so do that. So yeah, the jet mode is what it is. You can unclick and rotate the VTOLs, so you can move those forward and angle them, whatever. And it's a Windblade. I don't know what else to say. I do feel like compared to other Windblades, she does a better job of incorporating these legs into the back of the vehicle mode. Like, they're still there, but they at least look the part better than some of her other toys. So there is that. Anyway, let's just move on to size comparisons. So there we've got Windblade. Angle things a little better. There we go. And we'll bring in our typical folks for size comparisons. There we go. We've got Ova Prime representing the tall deluxes and Samus. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. So there's how all that works out. And again, for anyone who missed it, Buzzworthy Dinobot has taken the place of Generation Select's Artfire because I sold Generation Select's Artfire. And then for another deluxe legacy lady, there is Windblade with Burnout, Velocitron Burnout. And there's how they stack up together. And finally, the most important one of all, as always, here is Windblade with the duck tank. All right, now before we get all bipedal with Windblade, if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done and you want to support the channel, I do have a Patreon or a Ko-fi. Links to both are at the end of the video as well as down in the description. Otherwise, you could always do the typical YouTube thing of like, comment, share, subscribe. With that out of the way, let us transform a Windblade. So first thing that I'm going to do is get these VTOLs flipped around the other way. And they do click in both orientations. So just flip that 180 degrees and click that in. Now I'm going to pull the wings forward because they do, there's a little tab that sits in right there. So just pull that forward like so. I want to take the obvious robot hands and unpeg them from the sides here. Now, this whole assembly here can hinge up and back, and there are these little tabs here that will tab in on the insides of the, let's see if we can actually, there we go, on the insides of the knees. So, get those tabbed in. And now this part's really cool. There are these flaps on the back here that unplug and swing down. And they're on this kind of dual hinge system. You want to swing it down and basically get this tab going in there. So you get that lined up and peg it in. And you can actually peg it in like really securely to the point where it's a little bit challenging to get it unpegged. So like you can really push that in and that'll hold the leg together really solidly. So again, bring that down, and just go to town pegging it in. The tail fin can fold back as far as it'll go, and then the feet can fold forward. And basically, you can get the feet and the tail fin like that, but what you want to do is you want to hold the feet up and push the tail fin back the rest of the way so that it kind of clicks and will end up being level with these thrusters here. You'll kind of, like, you feel it click. It doesn't so much, like, make a click, but now you can see that it moves with the feet. That's what you want. And these side fins can go down, and then split the legs and rotate the waist 180 degrees, and we're practically done. Now for the upper body, you're going to keep the wings down. I'm going to fold up the landing gear and split the nose cone section. It actually splits slightly unevenly, but split that, bring it out flat. And now this will hinge back on a dual hinge system, and there are these little tabs here that are tabbed just behind the head. So I'm going to bring that back. Then before bringing it all the way back, use another dual hinge system to hinge the bits of the nose cone in. Then you can bring it together, and it will actually peg together. And the nose cone folds up and just kind of sits like that. And then this will come down. And it will actually, there's a little slot here that'll tab over or peg over this. So you can get that lined up, and that pegs the backpack into place. You can bring the wings up, and the wings can go, there are a couple of different ways you can orient the wings. These kind of have a soft click. This is all the way down for vehicle mode. And then you can see there's like this little peg hole here. That's kind of where you want them resting for robot mode. That said, you can go up even further than that if you want. it's not like a super hard lock, but there's that. And then lastly, you want to grab, like, hold the arm in place, grab the shoulder, just click it up. One little click. There we go. And that adds a little bit more of a dynamic flair to the shoulders. And that is Legacy Windblade in her robot mode, and she looks pretty cool. I don't know why she's leaning back. She's normally actually pretty well balanced. What is going on here? Did I click the... That's weird. This is not a problem I've had with her before. She normally stands just fine. I wonder if it's my my surface. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Well, for now, she's going to be leaning forward slightly until I can figure out what the heck is going on here. But yeah, she is pretty cool, and you may notice she is lacking her fan. That's because, one, it does come separate in the box, but two, I wanted to go over this before everything because it's kind of a pain in the butt to unpeg from the back of her head, so I wanted to show this off first. But as you can see, it does unpeg. There's a slot on the back of the head and this big old tab on the fan, and it just pegs in there. But you can unpeg it, and it does go into her hand. There's actually a very specifically cut groove in the hand. I believe it's in both. And basically, you want to orient it with the tab facing the thumb, and this just kind of pegs in like that. And that gets her to very solidly hold the comb fan thing, and you can do that, and it doesn't look great, and I'm never doing that again now that I've shown it off. Also, this is painted, so I would not recommend doing that too often because that will probably rub away the paint. So instead, we'll just take this and peg it onto the back of her head, and now we've got, there we go. That's our more familiar look for Windblade. Really don't like that she's not, and now she is standing, okay. So yeah, this, as I said, it's a simple transformation. It's not that different from a lot of Windblades, but she looks really cool, and she's really fun to mess with. Like, the pictures, honestly, the pictures of this figure did not have me convinced. I was actually planning on passing up on her because I just wasn't really feeling it. I think more than anything, the gigantic boots were kind of throwing me off. But like seeing videos, seeing photos of her being like actually posed, and of course getting her in hand, it's not a problem, and she's just, like I said, actually really fun to mess around with. The color breakup here is great. Way better than what we got with the vehicle mode. I mean, the vehicle mode was fine, but like that nose cone section was definitely a lot of red. But here, you got the black and the red, and then like just a lot of alternating between black and red, punctuated by these extra accent colors of like the silver or gunmetal in like the shins and the midsection, this light blue for the knees and the cuffs and the chest detail, and of course, all of the gold in the head. It looks really good. The color breakup is really good, and it's Windblade. I really like that the wings can be, a little bit dynamic. They kind of softly detent in place when you bring them back like this, so that's cool too, because they'll stay like that until you, decide you want to move them back, which I appreciate. And as simple as it is, I actually really like the clicking up the shoulder pads, because it does add just a little bit of extra dynamic angling to her sculpt, which is cool. And all things considered, pretty clean robot mode. Like, really, you've got this back here, and like that's it. It's just this chunk of a backpack, and this is all there is to it. It's fine. I've seen some people on TFW were saying you can unpeg this, like this supposedly, this hinge back here is not actually like pinned in place, and you can just pop it out. I have tried, to pop it out, and it does not work on mine. Like, I may just need to try popping it harder or possibly heating up that spot first, but I don't care enough to risk breaking the figure to try and separate that piece out. Though I will say it does look cool. Though someone did a custom where they popped this off and shaved some plastic away so that this could go around her waist as like hip skirts, and it does look pretty cool. But I am not gonna test popping this off. And again, like, all things considered, this is not really that bad. So it's fine. But yeah, she looks good, and I like her quite a bit. Now for the head, it's a really nice Windblade head. The sculpt fits. It's got kind of like almost like a geisha mask look to it in like the molding, like around the mouth in particular, which I'm fine with. But like the detailing and colors are great. I love the almost pearlescent white or possibly silver that they used for the face in conjunction with the red for the lips and around the eyes. And then like the blue for the head crest and the eyes, all the gold accents around it, of course the black hair. There's a lot to this face in terms of both the sculpt and the paint that is really, really nice. It's perhaps not the best Windblade face that we've gotten, but like it's a really good one. The only thing that sucks is because of this collar, you kind of have to be mindful of the chin as you rotate the head. That is unfortunate. So she does have to look up a little bit if you want to look past like this. So something to keep in mind. And on the topic of that, the head is on a ball joint, so you can look up and down a bit. You get a teeny tiny bit of side-to-side motion, then the aforementioned rotation gets blocked by the chin meeting the collar, but if you go above the collar, you can swing it around all the way. So there's that. The wings can move like this, but you pretty much just have this position or this position, and then they can go up and down. And I prefer to keep them in this position where they're lined up with that little divot, but you can do what you want. The arms can theoretically do a full 360, but because of the wings, they're only going to go back that far, which I think is fine. You got practically 90 degrees out. Now let's see, if you click this in, does that... Yeah, you can get slightly more out if you click the shoulder pad in for transformation, so there is that. You get a bicep rotation and a almost 90 degree bend at the elbow. The wrists do rotate, so that's cool. As you saw for the transformation, you get a waist rotation. The hips can go forward to about 90, can go back to 90, can go out to 90, and you get a thigh rotation that doesn't go all the way around unless you bring the hip out because of the sculpt, but like what you get without bringing the hip all the way out is still pretty decent. And then for the knee bend, you get 90 degrees, and then if you wanted to, you could pop this panel out. Let's see if I can do this. It's in there pretty good. There we go. You can pop that panel out, and you can bend the knee there, but then you can also, if you want to, bend this, which you can't really get too far with it without it looking ridiculous, but like you can theoretically bend like all the way down like that. And the feet also actually have a pretty decent amount of articulation. You've got a pretty nice ankle rocker, and then they can go back a ways, though because of this, it's not like a full foot tilt, but still pretty decent for the feet. So yeah, articulation's pretty great, and she looks really good, like both just standing there and doing poses and whatnot. So I don't understand why she's suddenly not falling backwards anymore. I don't know what I was doing differently, but yeah. Anyway, for her accessory, she's got the sword, and it looks like a Windblade sword. This being a little bit more pink would have been nice, but the purple looks good. And it does have that kind of like jet turbine look for the grip. It's all clear plastic that's been... I'm hoping this has been dyed black and not painted, but it's hard to tell. because this is, this is what sits in the hand, so that could rub off over time. But you can peg it into the hand. Also, you can use this little peg hole on the hip and peg the sword in there, so you can have her basically like have the sword at her hip, which is pretty cool. It would be cool if like this was, I don't know, like if it had a sheath or something, or if this wasn't as long, because then it kind of, I guess it could act as like an extra back support. But it's cool. It's a cool feature. There's just something about this that I feel like doesn't quite work as well as it could have if the sword was maybe a little smaller, or if it had a sheath, but it's still cool. And of course you can also put it in her hand. So now she's got a sword because she is Windblade, and Windblade has to have a sword, and I'm okay with that. So there we go. There is the robot mode. Now we can move on to size comparisons. Let's get things moved out a little bit here, because there are a lot of size comparisons I want to do. So she has Dinobot, and our stand-in for tall deluxes over Prime and Samus. And then getting these out of the way, we've also got Burnout. So here she is with Burnout, and that's doing this pretty far back, so it's harder to get things centered because I'm not looking at the camera as I'm doing it. But there she is with Burnout, about the same height, but again, Burnout has a lot more visible bulk, because that's part of her design. It is the whole point. So I get that. Whoops, I just bumped my light pretty badly. Now, since we actually just looked at this figure, but we're going to bring her back because I actually got these two figures at the same time. So here she is with Legacy Shadow Striker. And Shadow Striker is noticeably a bit short next to Windblade, but I feel like Shadow Striker is actually a little bit more bulky when you compare them side by side like this. So that's something to consider. And then for one more round of Legacy comparisons, we're going to bring the boys back. So here is Velocitron Blur and Animated Prime. Oh, that's too far to the side. There we go. So here she is with these fellas. And even though she is taller than Shadow Striker, she's still a bit shorter than Velocitron Blur. But as I said in Shadow Striker's video, Blur is derived from the Titan's Return mold, and that mold was a little bit taller, so I guess it does kind of make sense. Also, I didn't mention this before. I did in the video for this guy that I already filmed at this point, but just in case anyone didn't pick up on it, I did some custom work on this Prime. That's why he's got a little bit more color to him. Did not get the repro labels, but did some painting. Anyway, finally, at long last, here is Windblade with the duck tank. And that does it for Legacy Windblade. As I said at the beginning of the video, and we'll reiterate here, she's actually a really fun figure. I don't know, like I can't say I got her on a whim. I've been interested in getting this figure for a while, but what prompted me to get her was I had to place an order somewhere for like some stuff, and the site also sold Transformers, and I was kind of like, well, if I add Windblade to the order, I'll get free shipping. So it's like, I'll do it. And yeah, she's, well, Windblade and Shadow Striker. But yeah, it was just, she's fun. She's a genuine surprise, even though everyone was saying she's a surprise. Like, she's definitely simplistic, but I don't know, something about that simplicity allows her to have a lot more expressive personality in both her sculpt and overall design and posability. She's just a really cool figure. I'd say, like, well worth it. Granted, I haven't had every Windblade out there. I never, I want to someday get my hands on the Titan's Return mold for Windblade, but that's not happening right now. But she's cool. She is, as far as I'm concerned, of the Windblade figures that I have owned in the past, which include Thrilling 30 and the RID Warrior class, she is my favorite. So there is that. But that's enough about what I think of Legacy Windblade. What do you all think of her? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we are one video away, as of this recording, before I completely catch up to filming all of the figures that I have gotten in 2024 so far. I'm hoping I can keep this streak going. Interestingly enough, the figure that we're going to be looking at next is not a new one for me, but it is also a new one for me. It'll all make sense when we get there.